Brought up with my parents and one sister. Problem was my father on occasions drank too much, and as a child when you hear someone shouting downstairs it doesn't put a good foundation in you. Felt a lot of fear, made me feel insecure and just unstable as a young boy. As the years ticked on, this increased with the way I felt I looked. Inside I felt terrible, outside I felt as though I looked terrible as well. And when I was 10 or 11, I was sexually abused by an older man. And this just increased the sense of insecurity I felt about myself and put a lot of shame in me. I remember with my peers, like I had this secret that I just couldn't let anyone know about. Ended up trying to solve the problem, sat down with psychiatrists, with doctors and lots of professionals who wanted to know what the problem was, but no one would ask me, look Alan, have you been abused? Because at that time those questions weren't asked. These days they'd be the first thing they ask. So I had all this shame that I had to just hide from people, and I couldn't bring myself to say, look, I've got a problem I've been messed about with. Like, it just made me feel like tarnished goods. Inside I felt so much shame and rejection that my way of coping with it was to rebel on the outside, and what I did was just one big cry for attention. From the age of 10 I used to get in trouble with the police, get taken home in police cars. I would start burgling houses, burgling shops, because inside I was saying, please help, like, you know, I've been hurt, help me, like, but no one could help me. I had to just lock it away further and further. By the time I got into my teenage years, 13, the police couldn't cope with me, the probation service couldn't cope with me, and my parents couldn't cope with me. I was just out of control. And I remember being sent to a detention centre, which was known as a short, sharp shock. And basically it was. They had to wait until I was 14 to send me there. And basically my feet didn't touch the ground from the moment I went in till the moment I came out. And if anything was ever going to sort me out was that shock I had in going there. But it didn't. Got put in care when I was 14. Stayed there till I was 16. I remember whilst I was in there, if you can imagine, inside I felt this rejected, shameful little boy, but outside I had to portray something else. So whatever someone else would do, as in getting in trouble, I had to portray an image that was even harder. And I remember being in this care home full of boys who were as rebellious as me. But one morning in assembly, the headmaster said, look, in the barrel of apples, if you get one apple that's rotten, you know, it will destroy the whole barrel. And he made me stand up and he said, this boy is that rotten apple, which obviously just added to the shame and the rejection that I already felt. Ended up going to Borstal when I was 18 years old, and all the time there wasn't a day that I thought, I can't live this life no more. I don't want to commit crime anymore. But no one could show me how to change. Everyone wanted me to change, but no one could show me how to change. I started getting sent to adult prisons when I was 17, 18. And initially it was a bit of a shock. But at the end of the day, I started to get used to it. And I became so used to it that I felt safer in prison than I felt out of prison. I didn't start taking drugs until I was 20, which is quite late these days. That's simply because in the town where I was from, there weren't any drugs around when I was younger. If there had been, I've got no doubt I would have been a 13-year-old heroin addict. Because I had such a need that I needed to fill, I would have took anything to hide from the way I felt. First started smoking cannabis whilst in prison. Within 2 months, I was injecting myself daily. I was like a modern day vampire. If you can imagine, a vampire will do anything to get hold of blood, because that's what it feeds off, that's what it lives off. Same as with me, there was no crime that I wouldn't commit to get hold of money for drugs. I remember running in the shop with a baseball bat and just demanding money for drugs, like putting fear into the person behind the counter. It didn't matter who was behind there, I needed money. And there was nothing or no one that would stand in my way. Obviously, I ended up back in prison. Prison by this time had become a way of life. I felt safer in prison than I felt out of prison, because in prison I had all my meals made for me. They would tell me what time I had to get up in the morning, what time I'd go to bed at night. You know, all my choices were taken away. But at the end of the day, I felt safer there than out of prison. And I'd lost all my confidence through taking drugs, through the shame and rejection that I felt, that I could no longer stay in prison. I had to put myself in the block. Well, if you can imagine, the block is like an 8x4 foot cell with a cardboard bed, cardboard wardrobe, just sitting in there 24 hours a day with your own thoughts. And all my thoughts weren't nice thoughts. They were thoughts of destruction, like thoughts of rejection, thoughts of shame, thoughts of suicide or whatever came into my head. And I had to live with that continually. I used to look at the older cons. I'm on about the cons who just were there 30, 35 years. I used to look at them and think, that's going to be me, like. And in a way, I used to think, why don't I commit just one big crime to save going in and out? Because there was no thing of like, sort your life out, get better in life. It was commit a big crime, get locked up in prison, and just make that my home for the rest of my life. I remember one time back in 1990, locked in prison, in some prison in England, and a friend of mine from Wales, we said, come on, let's get out of here. Like, you know, I only had a short time left, but lying in that prison cell with my own thoughts, I just thought I need some drugs to hide from the way I feel. And we both escaped. I remember running for 10 hours with all sorts of people, helicopters not looking for us. We just run and run and run. But we got away, got back to my hometown, you know, straight back on whatever drug I could get hold of. And at the end of the day, I ended up back in prison, and I was sent to Dartmoor. If you can imagine, prison is a place that society sends people who break the rules. Well, Dartmoor is a place where prison send prisoners who break the rules. And it was a horrible place. It was just after the riots had gone off, and the officers there they were making sure that nothing of the kind happened again. And as horrible as it was, the last night that I was in there, I was actually scared of being released. I was scared of taking more drugs. I was scared and fed up of committing crime. It's just, no one could show me a different way. Like, I wanted to change, I just didn't know how to. For the first 2 weeks after being released from Dartmoor, I don't think I slept. I took such a cocktail of different drugs that I was just on the go continually. Ended up in this person's house. There were lots of Christians there. I'd done a load of amphetamine, load of speed. And I was looking at these Christians and I was thinking, like, there's something wrong here. Like, I'm the one who should be going fast, but these Christians are going faster than me. Like, it's as if they had something that I didn't have. But I looked at it, it was quite attractive, and I sort of wanted it. In the coming weeks, I kept talking to these Christians, drugged up, abusing them, saying all sorts of things like, where was God when I was in prison? Why didn't he give me bail at this time and at that time? And, you know, why would he love me? And just picking their brains, trying to wind them up, really. But they said, look, you need to pray this prayer. And I did. I prayed the prayer, asking Jesus to come into my life. No flashing lights or nothing. But my life started to change from that moment. The first time God spoke to me, I was lying on a roof committing a burglary. I was actually cutting the telephone wires, and the thought came in my head, and the thought was, I'm watching you. And that's all it was, but I had a rush from my toes to my head, like, and I just knew that God was speaking to me. I still carried on, I still done the burglary, but he started speaking to me every so often. And basically, I was now running, like, I was running because, you know, this voice was speaking, and whatever evil I had inside me just wanted to continue taking drugs, wanted to continue hurting other people, like, and not face up to who I was. Back in 1991, Ended up in prison once again, and God was speaking to me, like he was chasing me. One day, locked in my cell, you know, I remember falling to my knees and just saying, Jesus, you know, here I am, like. And I just felt the room fill up with his presence, and I started to cry. And when I say cry, I mean I was howling, like. And if you can imagine, from the age of 10, when all this abuse had gone on in me, you know, I don't think I'd shed a tear, or a proper tear anyway, like, because I locked all the pain away. But the moment that God touched me, it's as if he opened up all my emotions, and out they came, like. I cried for 3 days continually, like. Obviously I'd have to go to work in prison and that, but I just couldn't wait to get back to my cell, because I knew that Jesus was there, and I knew that he was going to just keep washing over me, like, and all my emotions were coming out, like. And I just so loved it, because it just proved to me that I was still alive. Because when you feel emotionally dead, you may as well be dead, you know. But I knew that God had touched me, and that he'd made me alive again. A month after God touched me, I got released from prison. If you can imagine being released from prison, drug free, right, and with this new Christian experience, I just it was a new thing to me, because I had a house, I had to start paying bills, electric bills. What are they about? Gas bills, what are they about? I remember buying a car within the first couple of weeks, started driving it. An hour or two later, I thought, I can't drive this, I haven't got tax or insurance. It just didn't appear to me that I needed them things. So I had to put it in the garage for a few months until I had enough money to buy them things. And basically, it was putting my life in order, like, because it's one thing being touched by God, and I've seen many people where that's happened to them. But it's another thing to walk the walk, and that's where the Bible comes in. You know, it's just direction for life. And if you obey the direction, you start putting your life in order. If you disobey it, your life goes astray. You know, part of the direction that the Bible gave me was to get involved in the church. And for me, it needed to be a church that was 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, because at that time especially, I was pretty messed up, and I needed a lot of accountability, because I had a lot of my own thoughts, but I had to run them past people and say, well, what do you think, like? And quite a lot of the time, I had to change what I thought and submit to what they thought. And it's proved that by doing that, my life has come on track. For the first 5 years, it was just basically learning to live life out of prison, away from crime, drug and alcohol free. And that was hard. That was really hard, because whenever a problem came up, I wanted to run to the alcohol. I wanted to run to the drugs. I wanted to run to all the immorality that I'd left behind. But I'd like to say I was kept in some sort of spiritual bubble. But the fact is, I wasn't, like. But one thing I can say is that God's hand was on me all the time. When I wanted to run away from a problem, which I would normally have done, he sort of grabbed my hand and pulled me back and said, Alan, face it head on. And it was hard, like, but it was worth it. As God started to restore my life, I started looking outward and thought, yeah, if Jesus can do it to me, he can do it to other people as well. As part of the church, we set up Choose Life, which is a drug and alcohol intervention program. And we got a day centre where young people come in, young and old, come in, cup of coffee, game of pool, just basically being around other people who understand them and can offer them advice, support, and basically direction in life. This often means that we set up residential rehabilitation for them. We got a number of different centres around the country that we can refer people to. Quite a lot of them referrals come from when I go in prisons visiting individual prisoners, which I really enjoy. Talk to them whilst in their cell, make them feel at home. I already feel accepted by them because they know where I've been in life. And I also go in and speak to groups of young men, just basically sharing where I've been in life and saying, look, you don't have to stay where you are forever. There is a way out, like. Going to schools, doing drugs education work, involved in things like Princess Trust. We go once in every 12-week course, do drugs work, explaining what drugs are what. showing them, look, where I've been in life, but also where I am now. And it's amazing how that's able to relate to these young people. Quite often we'll take groups of young men and women on outdoor pursuits expeditions. Basically it's just a laugh to get out of the centre, get out of the town, show them that there's more to life than just sitting in some flat somewhere. And we've done stuff like go-karting, horse riding, all great fun. Surprised at the feedback we get from these people saying that they've never done stuff like that. Whereas some people take stuff like that for granted. These people have never actually left their hometown and done something that's positive. Like, when I look back at my life and see the mess that I was in and the destruction that I caused and where I'm at in life now, it just reminds me of the scripture that Jesus said, the thief comes to steal, kill and destroy. And that's what he did. But he then says, I've come to give life, and life in all its fullness. And that's what he's doing.